Betrayed by my own family. He promised everything to Ethan.
No, it can't be true.
I earned this. You weren't ready. Liar! I couldn't be invisible anymore. I had to fight quietly, strategically. He underestimated me. I was ready.
The first strike. His empire is cracking.
No! This can't be happening! The stocks are plummeting!
It's over.
I claimed what was mine, but I didn't need cruelty to win. Respect and strategy were enough. Victory with dignity.
Ethan, Dad said, his voice carrying that weight I'd never heard before, I've decided the family estate will go to you. I froze mid-step, my hands tightening around a glass of water I hadn't even realized I was holding. Wait, what? You heard me, Dad replied, eyes fixed on the table as if the words were carved in stone. It's time you take responsibility for the family fortune. I believe in you. I looked at Ethan. He was smirking, that smug little grin I hated. Wow, he said, leaning back in his chair. Guess all those years of helping out finally paid off, huh? I wanted to speak, to yell, to throw something across the room. Instead, I swallowed hard. But, Dad, I thought we'd. Jake, Dad interrupted, his tone sharp now. I've made my decision. This isn't up for debate. The words hit me like a punch. I felt invisible, like I'd never existed. My chest tightened, and a cold fury began to burn inside me. I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. Invisible, I thought bitterly. That's exactly what I've been all these years. Ethan chuckled. Relax, little brother. You'll be fine. Mom will still spoil you. I ground my teeth. This isn't about spoiling, Ethan. This is about respect. About being seen. Dad sighed. Jake, I know you're upset, but this isn't about who's seen or unseen. It's about who's ready to manage what we have. I glanced down at my hands. Ready? Ready to manage? I'd worked just as hard as Ethan, if not harder. I'd stayed late, helped with the accounts, learned every little detail Dad never thought I needed. And this was the thanks I got. Dad, I don't understand. Why am I not me? I've done everything. You're passionate, Jake, I know that. But passion doesn't guarantee success, Dad said gently, though the words cut me deeper than any anger could. Ethan leaned forward, mock sympathy in his eyes. It's nothing personal, little bro. Just business. You'll understand one day. I stood up abruptly, chair scraping against the floor. Nothing personal? Everything's personal. You're my brother. My father. How can this be okay with you? Dad rubbed his temples. Jake, calm down. You'll have your chance in other ways. Don't let this destroy our bond. My vision blurred with unshed tears, and a dark thought anchored itself in my mind. Bond? If this was our bond, then I didn't want it. Not if being loyal, hardworking, and devoted meant I'd be overlooked. Ethan clapped me on the shoulder, smirking again. Don't be mad. Maybe one day you'll be the one laughing when I mess up. I forced a smile, the kind that hides everything. Inside, a storm raged. One day, I whispered to myself, voice barely audible. One day, I won't be invisible, and you'll see exactly who I am. I turned away before either of them could see the fire in my eyes. I felt small, humiliated, but alive with a determination I'd never known. The weight of betrayal pressed down, but instead of breaking me, it lit something fierce inside. That night, as I lay awake staring at the ceiling, I made a vow. I would not be overlooked again. Not by my father. Not by my brother. Not by anyone. And deep down, I knew the day would come when they'd regret underestimating me. You're early, Ethan said, leaning against the kitchen counter, arms crossed. I was expecting you to arrive fashionably late, like always. I gritted my teeth. Some of us actually care about showing up on time, Ethan. He smirked. Right, mister, I deserve the world. Don't worry, little brother. Dad's still making sure I get it all. I clenched my fists under the table, trying not to let my anger show. Is that all I am? Just a kid who doesn't matter. Dad laughed lightly from his chair, sipping coffee. Jake, don't be dramatic. Ethan has the experience. You're learning. Learning? I echoed, voice sharper than I intended. I've been working alongside you for years, Dad. I know the accounts, the contacts, the contracts. Contracts aren't everything, Ethan said smoothly, eyes glinting with smugness. Some things just come naturally. You'll get there someday, I'm sure. I felt my stomach twist. Naturally? You're not better than me. You're just lucky Dad favors you. Ethan shrugged. Luck, skill, same difference. Relax. You'll see life isn't fair, little brother. Some of us are meant to take the lead. I wanted to shout, to throw something, to make him see how wrong he was. Instead, I nodded tightly, keeping my voice even. Fine, I'll see. Later that evening, at the family gathering, everything boiled over. Aunt Carol laughed at one of Ethan's stories, and he basked in the attention. When I tried to share a minor success from work, he cut me off. Jake, seriously? That's cute, Ethan said, smirking at the group. But let's be honest, Dad already made it clear whose path matters. The room went quiet. I felt my face burn. I opened my mouth, but no words came. No one spoke up for me, and even Dad looked uneasy, but said nothing. After everyone left, Mom pulled me aside. Jake, don't let anger make you reckless, she whispered, her hand on my shoulder. I know it hurts, but you have to be smart. Think before you act. I'm not reckless, Mom, I said, my voice trembling. I'm angry, and I should be. He belittled me in front of everyone. Dad did nothing. I know, she said softly, squeezing my hand. Just don't let revenge blind you. You're better than that. As soon as I was alone, I grabbed my journal and slammed it onto the desk. I wrote furiously, spilling every frustration, every insult, every unfair glance. Why him? I scribbled. Why do I always come second? Why does he get everything handed to him? I'm not invisible. I'm not stupid. I paused, staring at the words. A thought curled in the back of my mind, dark but compelling. Maybe one day, I won't be second. Maybe one day, they'll see me rise while he falls. I closed the journal, heart racing. The anger was sharp, but it felt like fuel. Ethan thought he was untouchable. Dad thought he was right. But I was learning. I was planning. I stood by the window, looking out at the dark street. Mom's right, I whispered to myself. I can't be reckless. I have to be smart. But they'll regret underestimating me. Every last one of them. And in that quiet moment, with the moonlight casting shadows across my room, I made a silent promise. I would never let this go. Not the humiliation, not the favoritism, not Ethan. I would rise, and they would all see who I truly am. Jake, we need to finalize the deal today, Alex said, leaning back in his chair like he owned the room. I thought we were a team, I said, voice tight, trying to keep calm. We always make these calls together. Isn't that how we agreed? Alex's smile was slow, deliberate, and it hit me like a knife. Yet about that. Ethan wants me to side with him on this one. He's handling the investors directly. Dad thinks it's strategic. I froze. My stomach dropped, a cold pit opening inside me. You're siding with him? I'm just following orders, Alex said, shrugging. Don't take it personally. Business is business. Business is business. I echoed, voice rising. We've been partners for years, Alex. I trusted you, and now you just throw me under the bus. He avoided my eyes. It's complicated. I'm sorry, Jake. Really. But Ethan's path has Dad's blessing. I felt my chest tighten. The world seemed to tilt, the room spinning slightly. Betrayal tasted like iron in my mouth. So everyone is against me? I whispered, barely recognizing my own voice. Not everyone, Alex said quickly. Just right now. Things will sort out. I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. Sort out? Alex, you've crossed a line. Dad crossed a line. Ethan's crossed 100 lines. And you just smiled while it happened. I didn't smile, Alex said, defensive. I just didn't know how else to handle it. I slammed my hands on the table. Don't lie to me. You knew exactly what you were doing. You chose him over me. Over our years of trust. Over everything. Alex looked down silent. The silence burned worse than any insult. I felt cornered, humiliated, and completely alone. I can't believe this, I muttered. I can't believe anyone would do this to me. That night, I sat in my room staring at the ceiling, replaying the conversation over and over. Why does everyone abandon me? I whispered to the dark. Why do I always end up alone? I thought about Dad, about Ethan, about Alex. They don't see me, I admitted to myself. Not really. They see what they want me to be. Invisible. Weak. Irrelevant. But I'm not weak. I'm not invisible. The anger simmered beneath the hurt, hot and focused. I clenched my fists, imagining a future where I wasn't powerless. If they think I'll just take this, they're wrong, I said, voice firm. I won't stay small. I won't be ignored. Not by him. Not by Dad. Not by anyone. I reached for my journal, flipping to a blank page. I wrote furiously, words spilling like fire. Betrayal isn't the end, I wrote. It's the beginning. I've been underestimated my whole life, and that ends now. I paused, staring at the page. My hands trembled, but my mind was clear. The spiral of resentment had sharpened into purpose. I will not remain weak, I whispered. I will rise. And everyone who doubted me, they'll regret it. Hours passed, and the night deepened. My anger had faded into something colder, more precise. I imagined the steps I'd take. Careful, calculated, unstoppable. Ethan thought he had won. Alex thought he had chosen correctly. Dad thought he was guiding the right son. I smiled to myself, bitter but confident. They'll see. They'll all see. And I'll make sure it's unforgettable. By dawn, the decision had crystallized in my mind. I wouldn't lash out recklessly. I wouldn't beg for recognition. I would rise, smarter, stronger, unstoppable. And when the time came, the world would finally acknowledge the son they thought was invisible. And in that quiet, dark room, alone but determined, I made my first conscious choice. I would no longer be powerless. I would no longer be overlooked. I would take control of my life, and no one, not even Ethan, would stand in my way. I sat at my desk, rifling through papers I'd quietly collected over the past few weeks. There has to be something here, I muttered, scanning account statements and old contracts. A loophole, a mistake, anything. The phone rang, startling me. Jake, Mr. Harrison's calm voice came through the line. You ready to meet? Yes, I said, keeping my tone steady. I can meet tonight. Anywhere you choose. Good. Coffee at Miller's on 5th, 8 p.m. Bring only what you need. And Jake, his voice dropped serious now. Don't let anyone see you. Understand, I replied, heart racing. That night, I pushed open the cafe door, scanning for him. He waved me over to a corner booth. You're being careful, he said, eyes sharp. Good. Very few think ahead like that. I can't afford mistakes, I said quietly. Not anymore. He leaned back, studying me. Tell me exactly what you're after, Jake. Be honest. I want to understand my father's will, I said, choosing my words carefully. I want to know if there's a way to secure what's mine. Legally. Mr. Harrison nodded. That's smart. Most people react with anger or revenge. You're thinking strategically. Look here. He slid a folder across the table. These are documents few people know exist. Hidden clauses, outdated addendums, things that could shift inheritance distribution if challenged correctly. I opened it, scanning quickly. This could work? It could, he said, eyes glinting. But you have to be precise. One wrong move, and it's all over. Ethan is reckless, but Dad trusts him completely. That trust is your challenge and your leverage. I swallowed hard. And no one can know I'm planning this. Exactly, he said firmly. Keep it close to your chest. Even a hint could ruin your chances. You're invisible, Jake. Use that to your advantage. I nodded, feeling a mixture of fear and excitement. I've been invisible my whole life. Maybe it's finally an advantage. Mr. Harrison leaned forward, lowering his voice. Jake, power isn't taken by anger. It's taken by patience, strategy, and timing. Right now, you're in the shadows. Good. Shadows hide strength. I clench my fists under the table. I've spent years watching him get everything handed to him. Now, I want my turn. Good, he said, giving me a rare, approving smile. We'll work together. But remember, subtlety is your weapon. Not force. Not confrontation. Information, patience, and timing. I left the cafe feeling a surge of purpose. The streets felt different, alive with possibilities. I walked alone, rehearsing conversations, imagining steps I could take without anyone realizing. When I got home, I locked my door and opened my journal. I scribbled furiously. The shadows hide me, but also give me power. Ethan thinks he's untouchable. Dad thinks he's right. They don't know what I've found. They don't know I'm planning. I'm ready. I'm careful. I will rise. I paused, reading my words aloud to myself. I'm ready. Tonight, I take the first real step toward changing everything. For the first time, the betrayal and humiliation I had felt began to transform into strategy, into something tangible. I wasn't powerless. I wasn't invisible. Not anymore. And in the quiet of my room, with only the moonlight spilling across the papers, I smiled. Shadows were my allies now, and the game had just begun. Sophie, I think we can increase our returns by reallocating the portfolio here, I said, pointing at the spreadsheet on my laptop. She leaned over, eyebrows raised. Jake, this is bold. Are you sure Ethan wouldn't have objections? I shook my head. He wouldn't notice. That's the thing. I'm doing this quietly, but the numbers don't lie. We can outperform the original plan by at least 15%. She smiled, impressed. I like it. You've really grown, Jake. I didn't realize you had such an eye for strategy. I shrugged, trying to keep my tone casual. I've been learning, watching, thinking. It's about noticing what others ignore. Sophie laughed softly. Well, Ethan definitely ignores everything. Have you seen the way he's handling the Smith deal? It's reckless. I bit back a smirk. Exactly. And that's why I'm stepping in. Not publicly, just quietly. Making sure the company doesn't stumble because of arrogance. Careful, though, she warned. If he finds out you're outperforming him, he could react badly. I know, I said. My hands rested on the laptop. But someone has to take responsibility. Someone has to be competent. And if no one else will, it might as well be me. Later that week, I met a group of potential investors. Jake, I'm impressed, one of them said. Your analysis is thorough, and your projections are precise. Most people miss half of this. Thank you, I said, keeping my voice even. Inside, a rush of satisfaction spread through me. Finally, someone recognized my effort, my skill. Not my family. Not Ethan. Someone else. I thought about Ethan, oblivious in his office, counting on Dad's favor to cover his mistakes. He thinks he's untouchable, I muttered under my breath. And he's about to find out he's not. Sophie called me later. Jake, the investors love your plan. They're ready to commit. That's good, I said, though a flicker of guilt passed through me. I hope this doesn't feel like I'm undermining Ethan. I'm not trying to hurt him, just correcting mistakes he's blind to. Sometimes correcting mistakes is the only way to survive in business, she said. You're doing what you have to do. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. I'm doing more than surviving. I'm building something. Quietly, carefully. While everyone else is distracted, I'm rising. A week later, Dad called me into his office. Jake, I've been hearing positive reports. You've been doing excellent work. I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. I'm just focused on results, Dad. That's all. He smiled faintly. You've grown a lot. Ethan, well, he's learning too, I suppose. I forced a small smile. Yes, he's learning. Slowly, walking out, I couldn't help thinking about the growing gap between Ethan and me. I was careful, strategic. He was reckless, arrogant, and unaware. The thought made me both proud and uneasy. Proud because I could finally see the power I'd quietly gained. Uneasy because part of me wondered if I was crossing a line, taking advantage of him, manipulating situations behind the scenes. But I justified it. He had been given everything by default, while I had to fight for even recognition. I was leveling the playing field. Or perhaps I was creating a field where I controlled everything. That night, I opened my journal. Ethan thinks he's winning, I wrote. Dad trusts him blindly. But I'm here, quietly rising. Step by step, unnoticed, unstoppable. I'll correct mistakes, build power, and when the time comes, everyone will realize who truly belongs at the top. I closed it, staring at the faint moonlight spilling across my desk. I felt alive, competent, in control. Quietly, patiently, I was building a future that no one could ignore. Not Ethan, not Dad, not anyone. And in that quiet, strategic rise, I realized something important. Power doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers, and it's far more dangerous when it does. Jake, this report, these projections are impressive, Lucas said, leaning back in his chair. Ethan never mentioned this approach. I kept my tone calm. I thought it was important you see the numbers before committing. Ethan's plan has flaws. Significant ones. Jenna raised an eyebrow. Flaws? Are you serious? Ethan's strategy has always been solid. I leaned forward, voice steady but firm. Not always. He's overestimated market growth and ignored potential risks. If you follow his approach, the returns could be disastrous. Lucas frowned. That's concerning. Why didn't anyone bring this up earlier? I shrugged lightly, letting the weight of my words hang in the air. I tried, but he's confident, and sometimes confidence hides oversight. Jenna exchanged a glance with Lucas. So, you're saying we should follow your plan instead? Yes, I said, meeting their eyes. It's calculated, conservative, and it maximizes potential gains without unnecessary exposure. Lucas tapped the table. I trust your judgment, Jake. We'll adjust our commitments accordingly. I suppressed a small smile. Ethan had no idea this was happening. He believed his plan was untouchable, that everyone would blindly follow him. And now, without realizing it, I had shifted the power. Later, Ethan stormed into my office. Jake, what did you do with the Smith deal? Lucas and Jenna called me. They're following your strategy. I leaned back, feigning innocence. I'm just presenting facts. Numbers speak louder than pride, Ethan. He slammed his fist on the desk. Facts? I'm your brother. Dad trusted me with this project. You can't just. Watch me. I interrupted, voice steady. I'm not taking what's yours. I'm preventing a disaster. If you cared about success, you'd thank me. His face twisted in disbelief. You're undermining me. No, I said calm but cold. I'm showing competence. Something you might want to learn. He left the room, slamming the door, and I could hear him muttering to himself down the hall. A part of me felt guilty, but another part relished the first taste of justice, the small victory that no one else could see but me. That evening, Mom called me into the study. Jake, I heard about the deal, she said quietly. You've done well. I'm proud of how careful and smart you've been. I hesitated. Thanks, Mom. I just want to make sure nothing went wrong. I didn't mean to humiliate Ethan. She shook her head gently. I know. Just remember, brilliance without compassion can be dangerous. Don't lose yourself in proving a point. I nodded, thinking about Ethan's arrogance, about the panic in his voice. I'll keep that in mind, I said. But inside, I knew I had discovered a weapon. Precision, patience, and timing. The next morning, I met Lucas and Jenna again. Jake, Ethan's frantic, Jenna said, smirking slightly. He doesn't know how to respond without making mistakes. I allowed a faint smile. He's confident. That's his weakness. Overconfidence blinds people faster than any enemy ever could. Lucas chuckled. You've really thought this through. I can see why Dad's been impressed with your discretion. I shrugged lightly. I just believe in being careful. Results matter more than pride. Later, alone in my room, I opened my journal. The first strike is complete. Ethan's pride has cracks, and I've shown my capability without anyone realizing the full extent. Guilt lingers, but so does satisfaction. Strategy works better than anger. Patience pays. Precision wins. And this is only the beginning. I paused, looking out the window at the city lights. Mom's right. I must remain careful. Humane. But I also must not stop. I won't. Ethan underestimated me. Dad trusted him blindly. Now the game has changed, and I'm holding all the cards quietly, perfectly, invisibly. A quiet thrill ran through me. The first move had been made, and as I closed the journal, I knew this was just the start of reshaping everything I'd been denied. Jake, what did you do? Ethan's voice shook, a mixture of anger and panic. His tie was loose, hair disheveled, and his usual smug posture replaced by something brittle. I didn't do anything that wasn't already set in motion, I said calmly, leaning back in my chair. Numbers speak for themselves. Your mismanagement caught up with you. Mismanagement? He slammed a folder on the desk, papers sliding everywhere. This is chaos. Clients are pulling out. Investors are furious. I built this project from scratch. I sighed, deliberately slow, almost pitying, and I'm just making sure it survives. You built it on assumptions, Ethan. You ignored risks. Confidence isn't competence. His face twisted, a mixture of disbelief and fear. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Enjoying, I said, voice steady. I won't lie. I feel satisfaction in correcting errors, but I'm not celebrating your downfall. He laughed nervously, pacing the room. Not celebrating? Jake, you undermine me in front of everyone. My reputation, it's ruined. Do you know what this means? I know exactly what it means, I said, soft but firm. It means accountability exists, even when it's painful, even when people think they're untouchable. Ethan stopped pacing, glaring at me. You think you're better than me? I think I'm more careful, I said, leaning forward. I think I observe, I plan, and I execute without letting pride blind me. That's all. You always were jealous, he muttered. Dad never should have favored you over me in anything. And now look at you. I shook my head. Jealousy didn't get me here, Ethan. Strategy, patience, and focus did. You built walls of arrogance, and I found the cracks. His hands trembled as he reached for a glass of water. I can't believe this. How did you? I didn't need to cheat, I said, my tone deliberate. I just had to be competent. That's the difference. Competence versus entitlement. He sank into a chair, burying his face in his hands. Jake, I don't know if I can fix this. Everyone's seeing me as a fool. I've lost credibility, money, respect. How could you do this? I felt a strange mix of triumph and unease. The satisfaction was undeniable. He had finally realized his limits, his mistakes laid bare. But the guilt crept in. Was this too far? Did I cross a line? I didn't do it to hurt you personally, Ethan, I said softly. I wanted results. I wanted accountability. And you weren't delivering. He looked up, eyes red, voice shaking. You're merciless, Jake. Don't you feel anything? I paused, searching for words. I feel relief, mostly, but also a little sorrow. Revenge doesn't make pain disappear. It doesn't erase history. It only shows the truth. And the truth is your arrogance made this inevitable. He leaned back, defeated, silent. The storm had passed, leaving raw vulnerability in its wake. I realized in that quiet moment that satisfaction wasn't the same as peace. Seeing him crumble gave me a sense of justice, yes, but didn't heal the wounds of betrayal, the years of neglect, the moments I'd felt invisible. I don't know if I can recover from this, Ethan said finally. You've beaten me without even raising a hand. I didn't need to raise a hand, I said, voice calm. Sometimes the quietest moves are the most effective. And now you have a choice. Learn from this or keep failing. He didn't speak again, staring at the floor, silent and shaken. Later that night, I sat alone in my room, journal open. I wrote carefully. The first full taste of revenge is bitter and sweet. I corrected mistakes, exposed arrogance, and gained control, but satisfaction alone does not heal. I realize now that intelligence paired with humanity is more powerful than cruelty. Justice is necessary, but mercy gives peace. I closed the journal, staring out the window at the city lights. I had won, and yet the emptiness lingered. I knew the game wasn't over. Power could be taken, fortunes could be shifted, pride could be humbled, but peace had to come from somewhere deeper, from choices I'd yet to make. And I decided, quietly but firmly, that moving forward, I would strive for both. Control and conscience, strategy and integrity. Dad, we need to talk, I said, stepping into his study. The weight of months of planning, maneuvering, and quiet rise pressed against my chest. He looked up from his papers, eyebrows raised. Jake, I've been meaning to discuss things with you. You've grown, but what's this about? I closed the door behind me, standing tall. It's about the inheritance, Dad, and the family business. His face tightened. Inheritance? Jake, I thought Ethan. I know what you intended, I said calmly, letting the words hang. But I reviewed every document, every clause, every loophole. And legally, the inheritance is now in my control. He blinked, silent for a long moment. You did this? Yes, Dad, I said, voice steady. But I didn't do it to humiliate anyone. I did it because I've worked for it, because I've earned it. Not out of anger, not out of spite, out of diligence, patience, and strategy. Dad rubbed his temples, his gaze dropping. Jake, I never realized how much I underestimated you. I thought favoring Ethan was protecting him, guiding him. I didn't see you, not really. I swallowed the swell of emotion in my chest. I wasn't invisible, Dad. I just didn't have the opportunity to prove myself until now. I don't want hatred or revenge. I just want acknowledgement for the man I've become. He nodded slowly, voice catching. I see you now. And I'm sorry, Jake. I made mistakes. Favoritism, pride. I see how it hurt you, and how much you've grown despite it. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Thank you. That means more than you realize. Ethan, who had been standing silently in the corner, scowled. So this is it? You're taking everything? Dad gave it to me. I shook my head, calm but firm. Dad never truly gave it to you. He assumed it would go to you. But assumptions aren't reality. I acted within the law, but also with integrity. There's no cruelty here, Ethan. Just fairness. His face paled, arrogance giving way to bitter understanding. Fairness. I don't know how to fix this. You can start by learning humility, I said softly. Owning mistakes, accepting consequences, and understanding that privilege isn't power, it's responsibility. Ethan looked down, unable to meet my eyes. For the first time, I saw the fear and regret I'd imagined for so long, the lessons that arrogance had never taught him. Mom appeared in the doorway, her hand on Dad's shoulder. Jake, I'm proud of you. You've gained justice without cruelty. You've risen with dignity, and that's something no inheritance could ever buy. I smiled, feeling a strange mix of relief, pride, and lingering sorrow. Thank you, Mom. That's exactly what I wanted. Recognition, fairness, and a chance to show who I am. Dad nodded slowly. You've earned it, Jake. Not just the inheritance, but respect. I see the man you've become. Ethan, I hope you understand what this means. And Jake, I hope you remember to stay compassionate as well as capable. I will, Dad, I said, voice steady. This isn't about revenge anymore. It's about responsibility, growth, and using what I've gained wisely. Ethan stayed silent, head bowed, finally learning the lesson he needed. I glanced at him, then at my parents, and felt a sense of closure I hadn't allowed myself before. I took a deep breath. I'm ready, Dad. Ready to lead, ready to take responsibility, and ready to ensure our family legacy is managed with care. And I hope, someday, you'll all see that I've become the son and brother you thought you knew. The room was quiet, but not tense. There was understanding, acceptance, and for the first time, a shared sense of respect. And in that moment, I realized that control, justice, and dignity together were more powerful than revenge alone. I sat alone in my office, the city lights reflecting off the glass, and let out a slow breath. So this is it, I muttered to myself. Victory, but why doesn't it feel like it should? Mom's voice came softly from the doorway. Jake, are you okay? You've done so much. You've proven yourself. I turned to her, forcing a small smile. I know, Mom, but proving myself, it didn't come without cost. Ethan's humiliated, Dad feels guilt, and I feel strangely empty. She walked closer, placing a hand on my shoulder. It's natural to feel that way. Power and revenge, they never fill the spaces left by pain. I thought winning would feel like satisfaction, I admitted, voice low, but just quiet, lonely. I've outsmarted everyone, but at what cost? Mom nodded. You've learned something important. Revenge is a tool, not a cure. Recognition, respect, fairness, they don't replace companionship, trust, or love. Don't lose sight of those. I leaned back, staring at the skyline. I've invested in myself, strategy, skills, patience. But friends, family, some bridges are burned. Even Alex. I lost him along the way. She sighed. Sometimes people leave, even when they matter. But those who truly support you, they'll stay. And you have the power now to build something lasting, Jake. Not just wealth, but meaningful connections. I nodded slowly, letting her words sink in. I want that, Mom. I want to grow, to rebuild, to invest in myself, and in those who believed in me when no one else did. Her eyes softened. Then start there. Help those who helped you. And don't forget the lessons you've learned. Compassion matters as much as competence. I turned back to the city, thinking of the long nights, the battles with Ethan, the quiet victories, the journal filled with strategy, anger, and reflection. I've learned patience, timing, strategy, but also restraint. I can't let revenge define me anymore. It taught me lessons, yes, but it also left scars. The phone rang. I glanced at it. Sophie checking in on investments and progress. "Jake, the clients are happy with the adjustments," she said warmly. "Everything's stable. You've done well." I smiled faintly. "Thanks, Sophie. But it's more than business now. It's about balance, about making sure what I've gained doesn't come at the expense of my humanity." She hesitated. "That's wise, Jake. Not everyone thinks that way." "I have to," I said, voice firm. "I've seen what arrogance, favoritism, and pride can do. I've felt the isolation of power and revenge. I won't let it define the next chapter." Later, I returned to my journal. I wrote slowly, carefully. "I've won battles, but some losses are permanent. Power and recognition feel hollow without connection. I must rebuild my life with purpose, surround myself with those who truly support me, and invest not just in wealth, but in trust, loyalty, and compassion. This is the real victory, learning from the past and creating a future worth living." I closed the journal and leaned back, watching the lights flicker across the city streets. A quiet determination filled me. I would rise, yes, but this time not merely to prove a point. I would rise to live fully, to embrace opportunities, and to honor those who truly mattered. And in that stillness, I finally felt a measure of peace. Bittersweet, yes, but real. I walked into the boardroom early, the morning sunlight streaming across polished tables. The city outside felt alive, full of promise. "Good morning, everyone," I said, letting my voice carry confidence. Sophie smiled. "Morning, Jake. Ready to take on the day?" "I am," I replied, settling into my seat. "We've got a lot to handle, but I'm confident we'll manage. Let's start with priorities." Lucas glanced at me. "You've really taken charge. Ethan would be surprised." I shrugged lightly, keeping my tone even. "Ethan and we've learned to coexist. Respectfully. That's what matters now, progress, not pride." Later, Ethan entered the room, nodding stiffly. "Jake, I reviewed the quarterly report. You've done good work." I looked at him, eyes steady. "Thank you, Ethan. I appreciate it." He cleared his throat, awkward. "I know things haven't been easy between us. And I regret how I handled some things. I hope we can move forward, professionally at least." "That's fair," I said, voice calm. "We can move forward. No grudges. Just focus on results." He nodded, relief flickering in his eyes. "Agreed. And I hope one day we can repair more than just business relations." "I hope so too," I admitted softly. "But it will take time and effort. Both sides." Mom called me later, her voice warm. "Jake, I saw the way you handled the team today. You've grown so much. Balanced, wise, and responsible. I'm proud of you." I smiled faintly. "Thanks, Mom. It wasn't just about proving myself. It's about doing what's right, building something lasting for everyone who believes in me." Dad appeared behind her, eyes misty. "Jake, you've exceeded every expectation. You've not only claimed what's yours, but carried it with integrity. I can't tell you how proud I am. I just want to do right by the family, by everyone who's been patient," I said, "and by myself. That's all I've ever wanted." That evening, I walked through the family estate, thinking about the journey. Ethan was distant but respectful. Old wounds remained, but they no longer burned. The struggle, the revenge, the sleepless nights, all of it had shaped me. I paused at the balcony, the horizon painted in hues of orange and gold. "This," I whispered, "is the start of something new. Not just wealth or power, but growth, understanding, and purpose." Sophie joined me quietly. Beautiful view, and fitting for a new beginning. I handed her a small, carefully folded note. "It's for you. A gesture of thanks. For believing in me when no one else did." She smiled, touched. "Jake, I'll treasure it." I let the wind wash over me, thinking of every lesson learned, the betrayal, the strategy, the patience, the quiet victories. "I've earned my place," I murmured, "not by stepping on others, but by proving myself, respecting the path, and staying true to who I am." Ethan's voice came softly from behind. Jake, I still have a lot to learn, but I see you now, truly, and I respect that. Thank you, I said, voice steady. That's all I ever wanted. Respect, understanding, and the chance to build something meaningful. I raised a glass of water toward the rising sun, a symbolic gesture for the dawn of a new era. Here's to growth, resilience, and the future we shape ourselves. And in that quiet moment, standing among family, allies, and possibilities, I finally felt it. Peace, purpose, and the strength of a man who had weathered storms and emerged not just victorious, but transformed.